reading from the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, starting with verse 1. This is from the point of view of Isaiah the prophet. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a throne high and exalted, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphs, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is filled with God's glory." At the sound of their voices, the doorposts and the thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. "Woe to me," I cried. "I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. And my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." Then one of the seraphs flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongues from the altar. With it he touched my mouth and said, "See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin atoned for." Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" And I said, "Here I am. Send me." He said, "Go and tell this people, be ever hearing but never understanding. Be ever seeing but never perceiving. Make the heart of this people callous, to make their ears dull and close their eyes. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed." Then I said, "For how long, O Lord?" And God answered, "Until the cities lie ruined and without inhabitant, until the houses are left deserted and the fields ruined and ravaged, until the Lord has sent everyone far away and the land is utterly forsaken." It's the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Isaiah thought he was going to die. Isaiah, one of the most quoted, beloved prophets of the Old Testament, of the Jewish tradition, met God and thought he was going to die. Isaiah has a vision of God and believes that he is unworthy, unclean, that his people are unworthy. And he believes he will be ruined and he will die because his unworthy lips have seen and addressed the Lord. But where Isaiah expects death, God gives Isaiah a new purpose in life. When Isaiah expects death due to his unworthiness, God makes Isaiah worthy. Often it is the reluctant, the ones who seem ill-equipped, who are picked by God to be prophets and leaders. Moses says he is slow of speech and slow of tongue. Jonah tried to flee his calling and gets swallowed by a whale. Isaiah considers himself unworthy, yet God chases and empowers these people to do God's work. The unworthiness is sanctified and made into something new, called into a new life. When Isaiah believed himself unworthy and saw a future of ruin for himself and his people, an angel takes a burning coal, and it should be noted that the angel does so with tongs. The angel doesn't pick the coal itself. And then it presses the coal, the burning coal from the altar, onto Isaiah's lips. The burning coal purifies Isaiah's lips. It makes him worthy. He becomes one of the greatest prophets. Purified, made worthy, called, sent, yet Isaiah's message will fall on ears that are ever hearing yet never understanding, ever seeing but never perceiving. My school board for the school district I grew up in, Stowe Mineral Falls City Schools, received letters because they had not acknowledged or made any comment about the Black Lives Matter movement. So the school board held a special meeting over Zoom to read out statements made by community members about race and their experiences at Stowe Mineral Falls City Schools. Seemingly, most board members took this meeting seriously. It was solemn. Printed materials were gathered in front of the school board members as they read, the statements being read aloud. But one board member, throughout the whole meeting, is seen snacking, grinning at inappropriate times, maybe even laughing. And at one such time was the mention of a student committing suicide because of their experiences, especially of racial discrimination. She may be laughing at these statements. She may be laughing because she's looking at her phone or somebody is in the room distracting her, but the fact remains she did not care enough to comport herself in a way that even pretended to be respectful and caring. They will be ever hearing, but never understanding. There's a striking picture of some black protesters. Excuse my language, but one holds a sign that says, "Same shit, different year." Photo was taken in the 1980s. They will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. Elijah McClain was killed by Aurora police in 2019. This is a story which has resurfaced in the American moral consciousness, especially here in Colorado. Elijah McClain was known for dressing warmly because he had poor circulation, anemia, I think has been said. So he often wore hoodies and ski masks because he was a man that was cold. He's a black man. He's known for playing his violin to kittens. He was a massage therapist, and his mother said he wanted to heal others. Police were called for an unarmed, suspicious man in a ski mask. What little footage we have due to officers' body cameras falling off indicates that Elijah says he was introverted and wanted officers to respect his space. And he was trying to turn off his music to listen to the officers. And then he is wrestled to the ground and put into a chokehold, and Elijah loses consciousness. He regains consciousness, he vomits, and then he apologizes for vomiting, saying it was hard to breathe. Eventually he's given ketamine, which is used to sedate him, but also causes him to suffer a heart attack and transit to the hospital, and he becomes brain dead, and his family has to make the decision to pull the plug. During a memorial for Elijah McClain this past week, protesters played violins in a visual for Elijah. But also several officers posed pictures near the site where Elijah was arrested, which has prompted an investigation, and then riot gear guard to police officers pepper sprayed the gathered protesters. Make the heart of the people calloused. Make their ears dull and close their eyes, otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed. God tells Isaiah, "Go and tell this people, be ever hearing but never understanding, be ever seeing but never perceiving." Make the heart of this people calloused. Make their ears dull and close their eyes, otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed. While it sounds as though Isaiah is not supposed to help his people, but instead condemn them to a divine retribution for their sinfulness, rabbinical commentaries suggest that these verses imply a future tense to what God is saying. that Isaiah will go and give speeches and speak to the people, but the people refuse to listen to the truth and thus not achieve understanding. They will refuse to listen until they are actually ruined. The text says their towns will lie in waste without inhabitants. The few that will remain, they will be the ones to hold the seed to renewal and rebirth for the nation. How long will we be ever seeing but never perceiving, listening but never understanding? Already it seems we're being ripped apart. Will it take the destruction of our villages, our people, to the point that only a tenth remain before listening? When might we begin seeing with our eyes and hearing with our ears, understanding with our hearts, and turning and being healed? When will it stop being same shit, different here? Isaiah thought he was going to die. Feeling him and his people unworthy, he appeared before God expecting death. He received purification. He received a prophet's commissioning. He received a calling in new life. Isaiah proclaimed he had unworthy lips, and God had an angel take a burning coal from the altar, place it upon his lips, and declared him atoned. In a time of division and at a time when we see our sins so clearly and feel the guilt of that sin so deeply, perhaps we need to have burning coals placed upon us so that we can be declared atoned for. And I suggest perhaps burning coals need to be placed not only upon our lips, but also upon our ears and our eyes. Perhaps we need to burn away all that is inhibiting us from seeing and hearing. I think what we will need to burn away will be different for each one of us on an individual level. And every day we are learning more and more, especially us as white folks, what we need to burn away societally. What structures need to be burned away. But for us individually, practices of reflection and introspection will help lead us to the point where we can know what it is we need to burn away. It may be an urge to get credit for the work we've done, to be recognized. We might need to burn away the urge to think of our own feelings and experiences as universal, especially as whiteness as neutral. I personally need to live a little into the hope of our faith, believe in the possibilities for change. To see and hear, I need to burn away my cynicism, which can prevent me from living in the hope of the gospel. Once we have confessed our own impurities, once we have acknowledged what keeps us from hearing and seeing, much like how Isaiah confessed he was unable to speak due to unclean lips, maybe then God will provide us the burning coal from the altar. Both holy and destructive, the coal from the altar of God burns away the iniquities of Isaiah's lips. Once we have self-identified and asked God for that goal, we will also need to burn away the uncleanliness of our systems and ourselves. When we accept that burning coal and put it to our eyes, into our ears, into our calloused hearts, it's going to hurt. in many different ways, grappling with privilege, taking a back seat, failing and learning from failure, unlearning and relearning history, questioning our systems, contending with our families and their friends' ideologies, to give up things so others may have more equitably. These things, they do burn. Opening yourself up to the hurt and grief of other people of the world, and attempting to be attentive in healing, means opening yourself up to trial and heartbreak, and that hurts. But a little burn, a little hurt, that is what gives us hearts to understand, and the opportunity to turn and heal. But it starts with confession and atonement. It starts with acknowledging the ways we have failed to see, failed to hear, failed to speak, and calloused our own hearts. Confessing that and accepting that burning coal from God to burn it away. Do the work of atonement, of reconciliation. Last week I preached about our church entering into a time of re-welcoming. But to be a welcoming church, we have to have eyes which see and perceive, ears which hear and understand. We have to have hearts which understand so that our peoples, our nation, us individually, can turn and heal. Isaiah was called to restore an exiled people, to speak to an exiled and fractured people. On this Independence Day weekend, let us feel a call to restore a broken nation, to turn and heal. A call that begins with the confession that we have sinned and made ourselves unworthy, that we have lived in this sin by living in systems of white supremacy, systems that discriminate against LGBTQ folks, systems of heteronormative patriarchy. By beginning with that confession, we can ask God for the burning coal, that purifying, burning coal, so that we can atone. So we begin to have eyes that see and perceive, and ears that hear and understand, and a heart that is not too calloused. And then we can turn and heal. And after the burn of the coal which purifies, after we begin to heal, maybe then we can echo these words from Isaiah 12 and 14. I give thanks to you, O Lord. Although you were wroth with me, your wrath has turned back and you comfort me. Behold, the God who gives me triumph, I am confident, unafraid. For the Lord is my strength and might, and God has been my deliverance. How oppression is ended. The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked. All the earth is calm, untroubled. Loudly it cheers. Perhaps not us, but future generations can get there. But for that to happen, we're going to have to confess. We're going to have to ask God for some burning coals. And it's going to hurt. But it's going to let us turn and heal. Amen.